Okay, this is Dan Whitman. I'm in Washington, D.C. It's September 22nd, 2025, and this is our third meeting of our International Crisis Management course. Welcome to everybody. We have 100 people. Maybe we'll get some more. I was going to show a PowerPoint today, but actually I have three because it suddenly occurred to me there's much more to say about things. Uh, Let me just say, to put this in there's going to be some esoteric conversation today. It will seem very remote from crisis and from management, but I wanted to give some background, and thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to start with some thoughts about thinking. Now, the trouble that human beings get into and the ways that they deal with these troubles are uniquely human, obviously. Um, I want to be, let's see, I want to enlarge these slides. And here we go. Okay. So I call this thoughts about thinking. Now here we see a brain. um, which is sort of the origin of everything that humans do. If you look carefully at this slide, you see actually it's not a human brain, it's a monkey brain. And if we go to the next slide, we see that the monkey brain, um, if you see the left part as the part facing the outer world, you look for a frontal cortex, and you don't find much of things. Much in the way of a frontal cortex. If we look at a human brain, we see this thing here, it's called the frontal lobe or the frontal cortex. And this is an imperfect science. You know, these things are so incredibly complex. I deeply admire scientists and medical researchers who are able to figure these things out. The human brain is incredibly complicated. Anyway, the frontal lobe, which we do know is unique to humans. I think um, other apes have a frontal lobe, but a very small one. What does the frontal lobe do? Well, it gives us depth perception. It gives us an added advantage in how to perceive the world, and it gives us something we'll call conscience. How do you define conscience? My favorite definition, the thought that somebody may be watching. Um, this sense that humans have the idea of guilt, the idea of regret over something that I did, the idea of wanting to find a solution to a problem on a more simple, I won't say primitive, on a more simple level. Other mammals, and in fact, all animal life, have ways of approaching challenges and dealing with them. Humans have an extra gift, but it's also a burden of that is brought to them through the frontal cortex, and it among other things, it gives them this thing called conscience. Now we all know people we would say that person has no conscience, and I'm thinking of some political leaders in the world. Um, so this is relative, of course, but this is something. When you see a dog who looks ashamed because the dog did something on the rug, this is not absolutely unique to humans, but it is something that we have uh, developed more, let's say, than other thing. Now, the other thing about um, I'm admitting people, sorry, here we go. The other thing about the human brain, I wanted, this is pretty esoteric, folks, but I want to point out the binary nature of humans. In fact, of all animal life. There's a left and a right. Normally, with some exceptions, we have a left hand and a right hand, two eyes, two ears. two of many things. And in the brain, following this idea of binary, sorry, I need everybody to mute. I'm going to do that. Okay. Okay. Um, in the eye, you're probably familiar with this, the rods and the cones. Let's look at them. The rod on the left, um, the rod on the left detects light. It's the simpler the simpler component of the eye. It can tell you whether there's light or not. It's yes or no, yes or no. There is no nuance. There is no 2%, 5%. The rod will be excited neurologically, either yes or no. It's like a computer. Computer goes 0, 1, 0, 1, right? So I call this binary. The cones, these things on the right, we all have millions of these. The cones will be able to detect color. Now, in the natural world, color comes in combinations. You don't have a pure green and a pure orange, but there are many nuances. The cones, it's quite miraculous that a cone also is either on or not. It's only one of two things. It's binary. Now, the this shows this is a sort of a scientific thing. The rods will show whether there's light or not. They do not detect color. In your eye, you have 120 million of these in your eye. Wow. That's an incredible complex composition in the eye. On the other hand, each rod and each cone has only two options. It can be either on or off. This is why I'm using the word binary. Now the cones, um, only 6 million. 6 million in your eye. And these detect color. Now, I'm extrapolating from this. This is going to sound esoteric. I'm going to use this as an example of how the human brain, there's a binary aspect to it. Um, and I will say that the human brain, everything human, I think, there may be exceptions, has two sides to it. Evil and good, light and dark, successful and unsuccessful. There's something binary about the human being. It seems why are elections in France and in the US, why are they so close? It's always or Scandinavia. It's 49% and 51%. There seems as if humans, first of all, they're distributed in roughly equal numbers between male and female. Um, and I know there are many exceptions and there are other options in that, but a majority of humans are either one or the other. In elections, it also seems that they're equally divided between those who um, would rather have a progressive system and those who would rather conserve what the system has had in the past. And most of us belong to one or the other. Um, isn't it odd that it seems to come out roughly half and half? I think in many democracies, certainly in the US, the last few elections, the winning and losing happened with 1% of the population. So that shows that the creator, I can't explain this, but people seem to be divided roughly 50-50. Now, the human brain, it's an amazing achievement. Its ability to appreciate, to understand, to see complexity. It's amazing what the human brain can do. But all human aspects have two sides to it. Humans can be amazingly insightful and complex. They can also be enormously perverse. They can also be able to see an advantage in destruction, and these not everybody is entirely one or the other, but it does seem that humans generally they have built in these two aspects, complex, insightful, and on the other hand, perverse, self-destructive. Now, one of the advantages of the human brain, one of the things that humans do the best is to detect patterns. Psychologists and medical researchers will remind us that we're not good at everything. Humans have come to dominate the world from the other animal form. Um, Many animals can run faster than we can. Many animals can hold their breath underwater more than we can. There are many physical things where our animal friends do these things much better than we do. What is a dog doing when they take a dog for a walk and they find some place in the in nature and they're sniffing and sniffing? We don't know. They're taking in enormous information. We use dogs to help if there's a disaster and if people are stuck under, God forbid, the destruction of a building by bombs. We take the dog to tell us, is there a survivor down there? Now, so we're not good at everything, but we are good at detecting patterns. And it seems to be what gives humans their advantage in nature. Detecting patterns gives us the ability to empathize with tragedy. We last week we talked about Oedipus. Why is Oedipus a tragedy and not a comedy? Because we sympathize. We sympathize with Oedipus. We want him to have a good ending, and he has a very, very bad ending. So we call this tragedy. On the other hand, we delight in comedy. The man in America, the sort of standard joke, it's not very funny. Man walks down the street, there's a banana peel, the man slips and falls. It's a very basic, primitive humor. Um, why is that comedy and not tragedy? Because we have no sympathy. We don't understand and appreciate the complexity of that man. He's just somebody. The process of comedy and tragedy is identical. It's a pattern which is established, and then the rupture of the pattern. If we sympathize and understand and care about the person, and when something bad happens, that's tragedy. If it's just somebody, then we call it comedy, but it's the same process. Both of them establish patterns and then break them. Now, the other thing that the complexity of the human brain um, gives us as an advantage is the ability to categorize and to understand complex systems. And I'm thinking here of taxonomy, you know, and Carl Linnaeus, 18th century Swedish biologist, kind of created taxonomy. Let's take everything that we see in the world. Is it alive or is it dead? Binary, binary. Yes, no, yes, no. Alive or dead? Okay. It's alive. Okay. Does it have a skeleton? Yes or no? If yes, does it have an exoskeleton or an endoskeleton? And you see, the process of taxonomy, which I think is unique to humans, it's infinitely complex, but it's based on 1, 2, 1, 2. It's that simple. We understand complexity through this binary system, which is the way our brains work. It's amazing what we can do with that. And yet, at its basic level, it's extremely simple. Taxonomy. This is just a colorful rendition of uh, does it swim? Does it fly? Does it walk? Does it not move? Um, Through this, we have the millions of species of plants and animals and inanimate objects, rocks. Geologists work with inanimate objects, and they too use a taxonomy. So um, the human brain is, I would stress, the gift, the great talent of the human brain is to detect patterns and then to further to reflect on how the patterns are broken. When you have a pattern, oops, something happens. That's an abnormality, an anomaly. And our word for that is irony. Irony is the element which will break a pattern and show us that the pattern did not go on forever. It was interrupted in a way that may give us comedy or tragedy. We delight in both as humans. We need both of these because our brains are wired that way. As I've said, comedy and tragedy, I see them as identical. The only difference is the element of sympathy. If we care about the character in the movie, in the novel, in the play, then we call, and if something bad happens, we call that tragedy. If it's an unknown person, it's comedy. Okay, we talked about Oedipus before. Now, those are some of the advantages, I would say, the advantages of the binary way that human brains work. There are disadvantages. Obviously, the source of conflict among nations and clans and tribes, we versus they. You belong to me or you belong to the other. It's binary. Now, this is something in the human brain, in my opinion, which is not admirable and which leads us to bad things. This same quality of the human brain uh, gives us fear and even hatred of the unknown. Now, I live with my clan. I live in maybe a prehistoric culture and society. The land that I live in has no name. It's not a nation. Um, but there's another clan across the hill, and I'm afraid of them. I don't understand them. They're not they're not familiar to me. And if they're not familiar, I tend to think of them as enemies. And obviously, this can lead to conflict. Another negative in the human brain, unless we really work at our own educative process, we tend to make quick judgments based on inadequate data. I walk down the street, I see a person, or I'm in the bus in Washington. I see a person. I instantly make a judgment. I can't help it. I don't know anything about the person sitting opposite me in the bus, but the person has some physical aspects. There may be color involved or size, or how is it that I can look at a person and I can think that I think that's a woman and I think she's 40 years old. Can you imagine the complexity that we have to make an instant um, judgment or an instant impression? Isn't it amazing? How do you know? By looking at a person, they seem to be 40 years old or 15 years. Is it the size? The enormous amount of data that we take. Again, the data, however, each element of the data is binary. It's yes or no. So, and of course, superstition is another downside of the human brain. If we don't understand something, and we inevitably we need to understand as humans. We don't like not understanding, so we fill the void with. Some people would argue that religion is a way of filling our need to know the invisible. Religion, science, also superstition. Now, I'm not sure this is a negative, but of course, we are conflicted as humans between the heart and the head. The heart, the sympathy, the feelings that we have give us very different ways of action than the pure reason. Um, Let me uncover Blaise Pascal, a French philosopher who was deeply religious, deeply troubled. Pascal had he may have been a psychotic, actually. He suffered greatly. He had terrible nights of agony. He wanted to believe in God, and he just spent years and years not quite understanding. He lived in a Christian environment. He wanted to believe, and yet, as a honest thinker, he wasn't able to get to that point until later in his life. And his famous sentence, Le cœur a ses raisons que la raison ne connaît point. The heart has its reasons which the brain can never know. Isn't that beautiful? Um, the sense that our logic, we have logic, we have the gift of logic, but we don't always use it. Um, I won't say that's a negative thing, but it's a challenge in being a human. We have intense feelings. We understand that um, in order to survive a crisis, we need to use our brains more than our emotions. But the emotions are tremendously powerful. Le cœur a ses raisons que la raison ne connaît point. He also says, le cœur qui sent Dieu. C'est le cœur qui sent Dieu et non la raison. It's the heart which senses God rather than reason. Here's a philosopher who spent his whole life wondering if you could prove that God exists. And what he concluded was, with logic, can't do it. But through the heart, in his case, every person has their own heart and aspects. It's the heart which senses God, not logic, la raison. So this is a course that is going to be concentrated mainly on strategy. We know that strategy, when dealing with a challenge or an enemy or a natural disaster, we know that this works better than this. And yet, as humans, we cannot remove our emotions. I'm not sure we should remove our emotions, but you see how these two human things can work against each other. Now, interestingly enough, in the what we call the intelligence community in the US, um, this is of all the intelligence community, there for 15, I think, or 16, there's the Central Intelligence Agency, there's the Defense Intelligence Agency, there's the NSA and the INR. There's so many agencies within the intelligence community in the US. It's a very large community of people wanting to detect what are the problems that we have now or that we will have in the future. The summit of this whole apparatus, the whole intelligence community, is something called the National Intelligence Council. Now, this is a small group which rotates and which every 4 years, when a new president takes office, they sit down and they think about the future. This link, by the way, I have put it in your Google Classroom. This link takes you to something called Global Trends, where these extremely good brains will tell you their best guess of what the world will look like in 2040. I put the name Angela Stent here because Angela Stent, a professor at Georgetown, is a member of the National Intelligence Council and has offered to talk to us probably in October, November. Now, I went to a briefing once of them, and here are my notes from listening to the National Intelligence Council, something called systemic shock, which is a projection of things that well, the reason we do this is we know bad things are going to happen. We want to be in possession of the greatest amount of ability to predict them and to deal with them. Just taking notes that day, and this was some years ago, humans are good at detecting patterns. Humans are not so good at thinking of disruptions. Now, when you see a disruption, we're very good at that. But to predict it, when will the next earthquake be in Haiti? Will there be a world war started by Vladimir Putin? Um, we know that these things may happen, but we're not good at really being able to predict them. And this is what intelligence is all about. It's the we know there will be disruptions. We want to be as smart as possible and think, well, this could happen. This could happen. Therefore, we should prepare. Now, the rest is I don't have to go through this in detail. The global trends, which is this document, have a look if you're interested. I did provide the link. Maybe I'll put it up again in a note. Just that link to it's called Global Trends 2040, and they go usually 25 years in advance. They know they're guessing, but they're using the best brains we can find in Washington to make good guesses about the future. So they said that here lateral connections, demography works against economic development in a country like Nigeria, which will be the third most populated country in the world in 20 or 30 years. It'll be India, China, Nigeria, which will have a larger population than the United States. It's an enormous demographic growth in Nigeria. Well, how's that going to work? Will Europe continue to resist having people come from the African continent, even though Europe has this thing called underpopulation? Makes no sense to me. How can a country be underpopulated? If a country had fewer people, wouldn't it be easier? However, we know that people get old in Europe, in North America, in Japan, in China. They need help from younger people. The younger people are not there. They need immigration from countries with people who seek employment. Um, it seems very logical, doesn't it? Italy has a negative growth. United States is 1.8, I think, per childbearing woman. We are not substituting. I mean, it's fine with me, but it creates an economic challenge because the employment, um, the the people who can assist older people, they're not there. Wouldn't it be logical for poor people in the global south to be warmly welcomed in the north where they're needed? Anyway, within 30 years, we think Nigeria will have 400 million people. Can you imagine? United States, 330 million and falling. So,
Professor Whitman,
yes,
um, I heard the governor of Ohio.
yes.
That's a place where the Haitians were eating the dogs.
Ah,
So apparently, the economy of Ohio has grown to 25% as a result of the Haitians living in Ohio. So they're working, they're buying houses, they're buying cars, and so the economy. I mean, they're not involving crime, but they're producing, and the economy has inflated to 25% by 25%.
you mean
I said,
has improved when you say,
yes,
you mean,
growth,
yeah. No, that's
growth.
an excellent point. This barbaric comment that Haitians are eating dogs. What? This is nonsense. This was, frankly, some right-wing foolishness. I don't even know. Do the people who say, do they even believe this? And we know the Haitians living in the Dayton area, in the central western area of Ohio, as Olga reminds us, they work, they pay taxes, they exactly what we need. That's an excellent example. We need that. the people who are trying to make us distrust Haitians who are the best citizens of their communities. Why are they doing this? This is an example of the human brain. Um, f for reasons I can't even understand the stupidity of the, thank you, that's a great example. Um, so these are some of the other notes that I took that day. Now, I'm going to reveal to you right now, this is the Whitman theory of conflict. Uh, we've been talking about crisis is not a conflict necessarily. A conflict is a crisis. Uh, I will, let me get this out now, and we'll be talking about this several times. You saw the movie about the monkey and the grape and the cucumber. Perceived injustice, right? We agreed that there's no real injustice, but the sense that somebody has something that I don't have, this is a cause of conflict. Now, I add to this, I'm not trashing the United Nations. I have great admiration and respect for the United Nations. However, the SDGs, the Strategic Development Goals, which were established in 2015 and which are meant to be goals that can be achieved within a 15-year period by 2030, um, has some absolute numbers. They define poverty worldwide as a person bringing in less than $2 a day. If you make over $2 a day, you're not poor. This is kind of ridiculous. If you are a farmer and growing groundnuts or sorghum or something in Senegal or in Burkina Faso, you can live on $2 a day. But if you live in a bad neighborhood in Johannesburg or New York or Chicago or Paris, there's no way. At $2 a day, you're not poor. You're in the street. So these absolute numbers don't really work, in my opinion. Because the inequity, when it functions, it is relative inequity. Talk about poverty or wealth within the context of a predictable economic unit, city of New York, city of Johannesburg, and the numbers become very different. So you can be wealthy, or you can live perfectly well, I think, in Kenya or Senegal if you bring in $8,000 a year. If you live in New York City, you're poor. So there's relative. It's relative here. I just wanted to put. Now, a second cause of conflict can be resource scarcity. I mentioned in the first session the recent launch of the GERD, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This is an enormous accomplishment to capture the water of the Nile and to be able to rationalize the use of the water. The Ethiopian engineers who built the dam are very aware that Sudan and Egypt downstream are very concerned that this will cause them to lose their share of the water of the Nile. Um, I tend to believe the engineers. I've spoken with them. They say, no, 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 we have this figured out. Don't worry. Sudan and Egypt will get their share. But let's say there's a drought and the Nile has much less water to offer. Then what? Then we have people will worry, oh, there's much less water. If I don't get mine, if they get theirs, I don't get mine. So I think resource scarcity can be a cause of conflict. And I think that we've had wars over petroleum, haven't we? Um, there's lots of petroleum, but the amounts are limited. In the future, I'm sorry to say, with climate change, I think water will become a rare resource and could cause conflict, or the lack of water could cause conflict. We can talk about that later. Misunderstanding, miscalculation. Um, I put under here both the Beethoven video, the man and the woman arguing. She finds the hair. She suspects him of disloyalty. But then they are reunited at the end when they both understand this was a conflict based on misunderstanding. It's a comedy because it goes bad. We like these two people. We want them to be well off. We know that they love each other because that's the human aspect, and we understand that there's a misunderstanding before they do. We're the audience. The audience understands more than the characters in the drama. And then fear. I want to show you. It's hard to read this, so I'm going to show you in a moment. Here's a document I picked up when I was working in South Sudan. And this is, you see, it's a bad copy, so I've written it out. That there are something like 50 ethnic groups or tribes in South Sudan, but there are two predominant ones, the Dinka, and the president of South Sudan is Salva Kiir, and he is Dinka. And the Nuer and the vice president of the country is Riek Machar. Now, these two men, you'll see, and let me skip ahead. Look at them. See how friendly they are? Aren't they having a nice time? They get together, they have lunch. They're very corrupt, these two individuals. And they shake hands, and then they go back and they have their people kill one another over the ethnic differences. Here's the text, this document that I got in a bad copy says basically this. It's written by a general who is Nuer. I greet and salute the entire Nuer community, the officers, the soldiers who sacrificed their lives to serve the innocent lives of the Nuer in Juba. Juba is the capital of South Sudan. I am against dictatorship and tribal government, which targets certain ethnic groups, those would be the Nuer, of the 65 tribes in South Sudan. We must leave our personal, my screen is clouded here, our personal differences and resolve the Nuer problem. That's us, the Nuer. Because what is happening is not Dr. Riek Machar. Riek Machar is the leader of the Nuer. Rather, it is a problem for the entire community. Now, we get to some very dark language that becomes I would say, the justification for genocide. And it's created by fear. I urge all Nuer youth to act immediately, take up arms, rescue their suffering families and the beloved ones. UNMISS is the UN refugee camp just a bit north of Juba. I, General Peter Gatak, reaffirm my commitment to support the Nuer and side with my community. I'm ready to restore hope. Now, I argue this is the type of reasoning which leads to genocide, and it's based on fear. Milosevic in Serbia in the 1990s was able to convince, maybe he had fear, maybe he didn't. He convinced his people, the Serbian people, that they were under threat of being wiped out and they had to kill the Bosnians and the Muslims and the others who were not Serbian in order to survive. And they committed genocide. Now, whether the leader felt the fear, we don't know. But we do know, he was able to inspire fear among his people in order to get them to kill the others. That's how genocide happens. Now, I think this is the last slide in this PowerPoint. I have a couple more. What do we do as practitioners, whether we are in the military or industrial or commercial or psychological or community, dealing with community trauma, and certainly economists? The tools that we have to deal with these challenges, there are four of them: policy, tactics, strategy, and grand strategy. Again, there's going to be some repetition here. Let me say very briefly. Policy, it's very simple. It's a statement of what I want. My policy is to have ice cream for every individual. Okay. That doesn't mean I have figured out how to do it, but that's my policy. It's a statement of my wishes. Tactics are the use of logic that will get you through a day of crisis or of conflict. Tactics, maybe you're on an 18th century battlefield and you have the Hessians fighting against the Austrians. I don't know. They're lined up against each other. The tactics are what the leaders of each group will utilize in order, let's go to the right flank, and maybe that's their weak point, and we can break through their military on the right flank, or maybe it's time to use the cannons that we've brought. Maybe that gets you through one day of conflict. Strategy is the reasoning that you use to get through a longer period of time. Tactics are short, strategy is long. A tactical weapon, like these tactical nuclear weapons that Putin keeps talking about, have a limited range of maybe 1,000 kilometers or something like that. 1,000. A strategic missile would have, say, 10,000 kilometers. It's longer in duration. It's longer in distance. So strategy is how we think ahead, when we think not for today, but 5 days from now, thinking of the future. Remember, we were talking about the NIC, the National Intelligence Council. These are the people who think strategically. They think far into the future, imagining what might happen, not what is happening, what might happen that could frustrate my policy, my wishes. And then there's something called grand strategy, which is yet longer. We'll talk about George F. Kennan. He did not invent grand strategy, but he's a good example of thinking, in his case, 70 years. He did not know when he predicted the decline of the Soviet Union. He did this in 1947. He did not know it would take 75 years for it to happen, but he did predict that that was what we called grand strategy. Let me go now. If you have comments, just unmute and let me know. I want to go to um, okay, Boniface has a comment. While we listen to you, I'm going to try to figure out what's happening here. I want to go to a different, again, this happened last time. Anna Sobolyevska, your comment?
Yeah, maybe Boniface want to be first.
Yeah, sorry, let me mute all again. We're getting some noise. Okay, Anna, you had a comment?
Yeah, when you was talking about the disadvantages of our brain and how we make quick judgments, I just made a parallel with what Daniel Kahneman's called System 1, our fast, intuitive, and automatic thinking system, which work effortlessly and without control, just responding to some stimulus. And then there is the System 2, which is a slow, conscious thinking, and it requires some concentrations, focus, and efforts. And he just recommends us to develop this system too, to train this, to work with our subconscious, and make decisions based on logic.
Wow, and who is this person? Who is that? Who has developed this?
Daniel Kahneman, and his book is Thinking Fast and Slow.
Wow. Send me the reference and I will put it in Google Classroom. Wow. Interesting.
Obviously.
Yes, a lot of good brains have talked about this. What I'm saying today is pretty basic. To me, this was a discovery. Um, Many people are way ahead of me on this. Boniface, yeah? Boniface. Uh-oh.
Oh, sorry. I
Yeah.
hadn't unmuted. Thank you so much for the very insightful presentation once again. I just wanted to share also something that I have come across in literature on this subject, and maybe you could point us in terms of how you where you see it uh, based on your presentation. There is a book, one of the interesting books that I read on this by a gentleman called Alvin Toffler called Future
Oh,
Shock.
of
Yeah,
course. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and he speaks a lot to the acceleration of information and how the rate at which information is evolving and changing
Yeah.
too rapidly for societies to absorb. And I also saw that as potential source of conflict because now we have a flood of information coming through digital
Yeah.
platforms, and
Yeah.
so where do you locate that in sort of the sources of conflict
Yes.
obviously?
Wonderful, wonderful comment. His book was, everybody was talking about that book 20 years ago. He didn't know, he couldn't know about Google or artificial intelligence, but he did predict it, didn't he, Boniface? Also, Marshall McLuhan, the
Yeah.
Canadian theorist, the medium is the message or the massage, and he also predict there's something coming. I don't know what it is, but there's going to be a rapid acceleration of information sharing. Both of these individuals were extremely popular in the United States 20 years ago. And it turns out they were right. Now, Nicole, um, um,
Hello?
yes, we hear you. Yeah,
Yeah, you can hear me.
yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to touch on something from your presentation
yeah,
about Nigeria's population growing to around 400 million in the next 30 years.
yes,
Uh, from my end, I don't think that would be possible because at the moment we have so many Africans migrating from Africa to Western and Eastern countries, and most of them, it's like they go and they go for good. They only come back maybe during burials or when they are dead. So for me, I don't think the population is not going to grow, but the population will grow in those other non-African countries.
yeah.
That's my input. Thank
No,
you.
thank you very much. What we know, and this is very tragic, many Africans want to leave and go to Europe and North America. Uh, Tragically, many of them never arrive. Um, they drown in the Atlantic off the coast of the Canary Islands or in the Mediterranean. Many are frightened. The younger people, their parents tell them, "Don't leave, don't leave. Something bad will happen." And tragically, bad things do happen. That's a good point, Nico. We don't know. We have had predictions in the past of rapid population growth in the global south. And then when you go through 10 years, you realize, it wasn't that rapid after all. Because as cult, it's a generalization, as people gain a bit of wealth, it seems that the population growth diminishes when people have material wealth. I'm not sure why that's connected, but it does seem that the predictions are off. Very frankly and honestly, I think extreme population growth can only be a terrible challenge. And I love Nigeria. I've lived in Lagos. I think 200 million is enough, I think. But you're quite right. Many people want to leave. The few who succeed don't come back. You're quite right. Now, Japheth, and I want to try to very quickly go through one more PowerPoint, if we can stay for maybe 10 or 15 minutes more. Japheth, Wambua?
Hi,
Yeah.
my name is Jafeth. I'm from Kenya.
Yes.
I just want to describe to disagree with the speaker who spoke last. She was saying that the prediction of Nigeria growing to 400 million people. that it can't be possible because many of the people are migrating to other nations, and when they succeed, they don't come back home. And I'd like to say this, that many of the Africans have started realizing that Africa is rich, Africa has a very great potential. And many people, they're not quite, they do not quite want now to migrate to other nations. We can also check on the other nation restriction that they're put in Africans so that they can go to those nations. So you find that many African people, they don't even apply to those, many of them, they don't even apply to those visas because they know, first of all, I'm going to use my money to apply for this visa. And it is not 100% sure that I'm going to get these visas. So this kind of restrictions will block people from migrating to other nations. So my take on the Nigerian part, the population growing 400 people, 4 million people. And I can say there's high poverty level. And they say that the high poverty level, it has encouraged children to be born in a very increasing rate. And if you check the number of people who are from Nigeria who are going abroad, it's very, very few compared to the people who really want to live into that country. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. I don't see this as a debate. I think you're both correct. I think we do know that many people in countries that have inadequate leadership, they're looking for options. I think, and Kenya is a good example of a country where young people have brilliantly created startups, and you have this thing called M-Pesa. It's brilliant. You collectively have figured out how to make wealth out of a country where the geological and the agricultural wealth is enormous, but the distribution is inadequate. I'm thinking increasingly, well, Nigeria, let's face it, the most important country in Africa, the most populous, the greatest GNP. We want Nigeria to succeed because if it succeeds, its neighbors will also succeed. To me, there's a great drama in Africa, the wealth of the young people, the wealth of the soil, and the versus the inadequacy of the leadership. This creates a great tension. I think both of you've made really excellent points. Let me race through one more. I just want to introduce the idea of deceit. I want to fool you. Again, human aspect. There's always two sides to it. Deceiving to fool somebody can be great fun. Here's the definition. Isn't that fun? Peekaboo. We have children. Look, they're having fun by pretending they're not there. You know, this thing, all children do this, I think, worldwide. And they delight. And we delight in fooling and being fooled. We love to be fooled. I don't know why. It's just something human. With children, we call it peekaboo or cache-cache in French. Adults, we have this thing called suspension of disbelief. It's the same thing. We watch a play, we see people on stage, we know that they're acting, and yet we're able to remove our skepticism and to be fooled by them. The genius of art and performance and music and painting is that it makes things look simple when actually they're very complicated. We as the audience are very willing to go along with this because we love to be fooled. This is a mystery. I don't know why humans love to be fooled, but they do. Again, two sides to this. Now, deceit is something pretending that you are something which you are not. This happens in nature. We'll see the viceroy and the monarch butterfly in a moment. the false flag operations that the Russians have engaged in before and during the conflict, where they try to make it seem as if something is happening, but it's not them, when really it is them. This is deceit. This is strategy. It is the basis of strategy. There's a close connection. Here's where we get esoteric. In art, in performing art, there's also strategy based on the same principle of deceit. Now, in nature, we have, many of you are familiar with this, the monarch butterfly and the viceroy butterfly. They look the same, okay? One of them is poisonous and one of them is not. The birds that eat butterflies understand that they may be eating something that's poisonous. Therefore, they don't eat either the monarch or the viceroy. Now, is this something that came through a brain, through a logical thing? No, I mean, it was natural selection. It happened by accident. I don't think butterflies have the intellectual capacity to purposely deceive, but nature has made it possible for them to do so. We call this mimesis. Mimesis. Mimesis is the process of pretending to be what you are not. Now, in Hamlet, the play within the play, if you're familiar with this, they want to reveal the guilt of the murderer in the drama, and so Shakespeare has a play within a play. This wonderful quote, "The play is the thing wherein we'll catch the conscience of the king." They want to enact a drama which will cause the king to confess. Um, and what is this is a marvelous process. By creating a play within a play, what Shakespeare does is draw us further into a fiction so that the result is the play of Hamlet to me becomes real. It's I have no problem identifying with a fiction because there's a more complex fiction within the fiction. Therefore, he draws me in, and for me, Hamlet is real, and Ophelia, his daughter, his sister, is real, and this is a marvelous process which was used quite a bit in Europe in the 16th and 17th century as a technique to make us believe something which is in fact fictional. Now, I would love to spend an hour on this. Diego Velázquez, the Spanish painter, 1656, Las Meninas. I think we don't have time to go through all of this. This is one of the most famous and fascinating paintings ever made. Let me just race through this. Let me say, if you remember the video of Sid Caesar and Annette Fabre, and she takes the hair from his shoulder. Do you remember that? Did you see the hair? You thought you saw the hair, but we know there wasn't one. It was acting, it was art that made us not even doubt that there's a hair. Did we actually see it? No. Here's an amazing work of art. I think it's my favorite, actually. Here's the situation in brief. We talked about Philip II in the late 16th century, who invaded the Netherlands. We want you to be Catholic, and he was defeated. Now, this was sort of the high point of the Spanish monarchy. From there, it went down. In the following decades, Philip II, there was Philip III. Philip IV was in trouble. What is the main task of a monarch? To have children. No heir. Philip IV married Elizabeth of France. No children. Terrible. Well, conveniently, she died. So the king got to remarry. He married somebody named Mariana of Austria, and they had a child who was a girl. The Infanta is the one who will inherit the throne, Margarita Teresa. Now, here's the girl. If you can see my cursor, she's the the center of attention. She's 5 years old in this painting. Now, what's going on? The first question I will, nothing in this painting, nothing is what it seems. Everything is deceitful. This is, where is the window? Where's the window? Well, it seems you will tell me the window's on the right. Do you see the window? No, it's deceitful. This is marvelous. This is marvelous. We love to be fooled as children by doing peekaboo. As adults, we love to be fooled, to be made to think there seems to be a window, but he very purposely does not show us the window. He implies the window. Now, the painting, what is this in the back? There have been many interpretations of this marvelous painting. What's happening here? It's like photography, isn't it? It's the capture of a single moment. In the 17th century, capturing a single moment. Wow, what an artistic achievement. Something is being interrupted here. The painter, and this is a self-portrait of Velázquez himself, looking, who's he looking at? Is he looking at Jaffe? Is he looking at Nicole? Is he looking at me? Maybe he's looking at the royal couple, Felipe and the king and the queen, who may be the two individuals that we see in this painting or mirror at the far wall next to the Chamberlain who's opening the door. That's the what we call the vanishing point in perspective. It all ends at the Chamberlain who's opening the door. Apparently, we have the royal family that has interrupted a session where the painter has been doing a portrait of the Infanta. That's what it seems to be. And suddenly the royal couple has entered the room and everything is interrupted. The painter is looking at the royal couple whose image is reflected in the mirror at the back of the room. And this one of the ladies in waiting has just kicked the dog. Wake up, wake up. There's something important. Don't just lie there. She wants the dog to show respect for the royal family. Now, this is what it seems. However, people who've studied this painting tell us that the picture in the back of the room cannot be a mirror because the angle would be incorrect. There's nothing accidental here. Everything is thoroughly studied, and there's nothing is done by accident by this painter. So it seems that he wants you to think that this is a mirror of the king and queen, and yet the angle implies that it cannot be. Well, wait a minute. What's going on here? What's the point? What is the purpose of all of this? I see we're running late on time. Let me compress this. Every person who's ever seen this painting has a different reaction. Some say, this is amazing. We got to see the Infanta being painted by the greatest painter of that century. But something interrupted them and they were turning around to acknowledge the entry of the royal couple. However, if you study it further, you see that that's impossible because the mirror cannot be a mirror. It must be a painting. So, so here's my interpretation. You interpret this as you will. My interpretation is this is the artist talking to us, telling us, of all the people in my life, the only one who matters is me. I have more talent. There's nothing modest here. There's nothing self-effacing. I am the artist. I am the most brilliant individual of this period of history, and I am directing my attention to you 3 centuries in the future. He's addressing us. That's my reading. Everybody has a different reaction. And he's looking, when I look at this, I see the painter looking at me. How is this possible? 1655 or something, 1656. How could he know who I am? Well, this is brilliance, absolute brilliance. Now, just as an anecdote, in Spain, this rendition, this picture is so universal. You'll never go through a street or a store without seeing some reference to this picture. We have many. This is Picasso. Um, he's playing on the Las Meninas, the most famous Spanish painting. I guess Rembrandt, Velázquez, these were amazing intellect people, artists, and they were using strategy in art in order to deceive us. That was the point, to deceive us, to make us think something. We have these, we have all these many images. You'll see them in graffiti on buildings. You'll see the Las Meninas. You'll see salt and pepper shakers shaped like the dress of the. Now, I don't mean to be Eurocentric here. We who've had the delight of witnessing African performances with masks and with now here's another example. It's fantastic what happens in Africa when there's a celebration or the marking of an occasion with masks. We know these are masks, but we love to be fooled. We love to think maybe they're scary, maybe they're funny. They taunt us, they terrify us, and we love to go along with it. This is a mystery to me. I don't know why humans love to be fooled, but this is universal. And I think you could find examples in the Middle East, in Asia, in Latin America. This is I think Africans who are watching this will remember ceremonies that I've seen them, and these are experiences you'll never forget. They're lively. They excite the senses, and I greatly admire the people who do it. The existence in many cultures. Corneille, the French dramatist, one of his great plays, Le Menteur, the liar, based on deceit. In West Africa, we have a folk hero called Luc le Lièvre, Luc the hare. And this is a bunny who's always outsmarting. He has no defenses. He's a rabbit. He can't physically oppose his enemies, but he outsmarts them. And he becomes, in the United States, Bugs Bunny. It comes from West Africa. The trickster, which is a traditional German folk hero, Till Eulenspiegel. Same thing. A little guy, he has no money, he has no influence, but somehow he manages to find his way. We all identify with this. We all identify with the underdog, with the character who doesn't have the wealth, the power, the influence, but who somehow uses his brain. And the way he uses it is through deceit and tricking people. We get to the conclusion, which brings us back to our course. I've been esoteric. We talked about art and military strategy. I honestly think there's a relationship between what art does and what military strategy does. Sun Tzu, when you are weak, pretend to be strong. When you are strong, pretend to be weak. Your best chance of winning a battle is to trick the enemy. We call this strategy. This is my final slide for today. Lawrence Friedman wrote this book. All of my ideas in this course come from this book. This is a 800-page book. I highly recommend it. I don't know if you'll have time to read 800 pages. I have given you the first couple chapters in your Google Classroom. We'll talk about those, in which Friedman tells us everything I've just explained to you comes from Friedman. And he has promised to visit us and to speak with us at a later session. So,
Professor, I want to
Yes,
tie in the deceit into something.
please.
Nigeria is the sixth largest oil producing country in the world, number
Yes,
two in crude oil. So what they should have been the World Bank for the entire continent of Africa. But
correct.
through deceit, they had, when I followed the whole electoral process, I'm Haitian, not Nigerian, when they were converting to democratic rather than military, what I
Yes,
found out at the time, they had three refineries, and two of the refineries they destroyed through deceit so that they could import and make more money by selling to their people. So the deceit that they use for capitalism, which is the distribution of scarce resources, puts them in a position where they'll never be able to evolve economically, because what they've done through the deceit is only just a few that's able to have. But if they spread a little bit of the wealth with the people, they would have gotten more money. And they do not understand the concept of economics. But anyway, it's through deceit. They're known for being corrupt, but you know, yeah. Anyway,
That's a wonderful comment. It's a very sad comment. For me, it's a very emotional thing because I hate bad leadership. I hate it. I think the lesson, and thank you for reminding us that bad people use strategy also. I guess because humans, it's always good and bad. There are two sides. I guess the lesson is bad people use strategy. Good people must learn to use strategy better. We,
yes.
we good people, I think we're all good. Um, we must master this, and we must outsmart people who use strategy for selfish and negative reasons. These are not people who are going to make our lives better. Our lives can be better only if our strategy can be better than their strategy. That's kind of what this course is about. Did someone else have a comment? Thank you. I mean, this is very emotional I think, for Africans and for me, who've lived in Africa. What a wonderful continent! What wonderful cultures! It's varied. It's rich, um, but betrayed first of all by colonialism. We can't blame everything on colonialism, which disappeared 80 years ago. Uh, Colonialism left a very negative legacy. However, there are leaders. I'm thinking of Sani Abacha. What a nasty guy he was. Um, and we can think of other examples. It's tragic that these people gain and keep the power over innocent people. As I said last week, in my experience, 2% are the ones making all the problems for the 98%. And I don't know why and how they were able to do this, but we need to be smarter and to use strategy for the benefit of everybody, so that we can control the leaders who are betraying us. Thank you,
They
Bob.
also they in cahoot with the multinational corporations. They get
Absolutely.
money from them, and so that's how they continue the colonialism. You don't necessarily have to be there now. You just use the leaders, the de facto leaders, and you get them to get all your resources, and you get about 5% of it, and they get 80% of it,
Yeah.
because you're not able to harness
Yes.
whatever good that you have.
And this is an outrageous phenomenon in the global South. I'm sad to say this is beginning to happen in the United States. We have, this is not relative inequity. This is absolute inequity. I forget the numbers. The top 1% own 50% of the wealth of this country. It's crazy. And we must, we have no choice. We have to use strategy. The basis of strategy is deceit. I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Yafet, I think this will be our last comment for today. I don't want to go way over. Yafet?
Okay, thank you. On that, I think, do you think that the way people have the knowledge or the information, for example, we can take Kenya as an example, that for many years, people are being fooled by these leaders. But from last year, there's a change that from the people themselves, that they now know the government, they now know these people who have been in position for more than 30 years, who have been using our resources for their own benefit. What can we say on, can we say that for a person to be fooled, having the knowledge about something, does it contribute for you not to be outsmart?
I would, that's again, wonderful comment. I would say strategy, we're talking about human beings. We all have this ability to fool people. In a situation where wealth is being removed and where people are suffering from bad leadership, we have no choice. We have to be better at using this. Everybody has the ability to trick. We need to develop it greater than the people who are ruining our lives. I see Yafeth seems to agree with that. It's terrible. I wish we didn't have to think these things. Everybody has strategy available to them. And I'm sorry to say, some have figured it out, and it's not for our benefit. So it is our task to learn to use it more effectively, not to destroy them or maybe even punish them, but to get things the way they need to be, to get a genuine sharing of resources. In this world, resources are not shared, certainly not in Russia, increasingly not in the United States, and clearly not in the global South. This must be fixed, and we must be smarter than the people who are making it difficult
It's
for the
for
rest.
all, it's all the developing nation, not just us, all the developing nation. And
Absolutely.
when you try by yourself, you get killed, like the president of Haiti. That's what they do. But you need the masses. The masses is what's going to make the difference, not
Yep.
the leadership.
Absolutely. However, we act as individuals. We are not masses. We need to figure out how to convince large numbers of people to do things in their own interest. It's a delicate thing. When you get a mass movement, it can create terrible destruction. I'm not sure we really want that. The Kouri in Haiti, and I know Olga's very familiar with the Kouri. They didn't always do good things. They were masses. It's very tricky, and we will. We won't have answers in this course, but we will be thinking about this and figuring how can we use strategy for the general well-being of people. I think that's really what we're all about. And I think I'll say goodbye for today. We are, I've just made us a day late in the program. Peterson, I see Peterson and Kelvin are communicating. I must acknowledge the group in Kenya, you are fabulous. You are doing marvelous things, and I love your comments, and I love seeing you communicate with one another. Matthias, goodbye to all. We will get together on Thursday for more fun and games. Anyway,
I didn't get a mentor. So do I send it to you?
Anybody who thinks they need a mentor, send me an email. Thank you. Thank you.
I did.
Okay. Maybe I didn't see it. Send another if you would. Thanks.
Okay, will do.
Okay. Goodbye for
Bye.
today. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.